All right, my name is Jeremy Capsa, and this is my poem recording. Ozymandias by Percy Shelley. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, "Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions bred, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them, and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal these words appear: My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains round the decay of that colossal wreck. Boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. So, this poem essentially tells the story of a man who met a traveler, which you can see in the first line. I met a traveler from an antique land. And then all the rest of the poem is actually a quote from the traveler being told by the original narrator. So that's the summary, essentially, of the poem. And what the traveler is talking about is a ruin, which is like presumably in Egypt. If we look down here, it'll tell us that Ozymandias refers to Pharaoh Ramesses II, and that the statue was once 57 feet tall, that the poem refers to, although the title King of Kings comes from Persian Shahanshah, which is not, which actually is not Egyptian. It's from the Persian dynasties, the Achaemenids, but alas, seems to be just a clerical error in the poem. So yeah, this traveler is talking about the statue of Ozymandias and the state that it is in. And so basically this statue is sort of half sunk, so it's sort of falling apart. And yeah, nothing other than the statue is around, so it's sort of just in the desert alone, surrounded by sand. And it describes it as a colossal wreck here, boundless and bare. So the statue isn't in such great shape. So this leads me to believe that the statue, the Egyptian statue, is a metaphor for the passage of time and sort of the decay of civilizations and societies, and sort of a metaphor for the eventual futility of human creation. So, in terms of literary devices, there are a couple of important literary devices that Percy Shelley uses in this poem. For example, alliteration is used in 3 different places. The first being here, sneer of cold command, where Shelley uses 2 words that start with C to emphasize the command part of this line. This is used to emphasize the imperious nature of the king and his power. The second use of alliteration is here, where it says boundless and bare, which serves to emphasize the extent of the devastation of the statue. And I want to make it clear that King of Kings is not an example of alliteration, because it's not being used as a literary device here. Perhaps it could be, but I'm assuming it's being used as the formal title of Ozymandias, so I don't think it's a literary device here. The third and final example of alliteration is lone and level, which serves to show just how isolated the statue is, or has become. In contrast to the ruler, the statue is completely powerless and isolated. Interestingly, in this poem, the rhyming scheme is not super consistent. For the first part of the poem, the end rhymes come every other line, so land rhymes here with sand, stone with frown, and then land and sand go on to rhyme with command. Next from stone and frown is red and fed. But then, interestingly, here we have things, which doesn't rhyme with the next line over, but rhymes with kings, the rhyme, or the line down from that. And then appear, which by the scheme that the poem had started with should have rhymed with things, then actually begins to rhyme with despair, and then decay does not rhyme with kings, but rhymes with away, bear. So basically at this point in the poem, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed, the rhyming scheme sort of changes up. Overall, I really like this poem. I've read it before, and I think there are a couple of reasons why this poem stands out. At least for me, I like history. I'm very interested in history, so the topic of Pharaoh is particularly interesting, but I think also just in general, the poem is accessible, so its message, if one just thinks about it, is pretty easy to glean from reading it. I think that it's written in a way that isn't overly simplified for the reader. It's definitely a bit dated in some of its language, for example, use of antique, but I think overall it's pretty easy to understand and also easy to come away with the message, because the king and his statue is sort of are kind of antithetical to the actual state the statue's in. So the message of the statue is not doesn't match up with the state that it's in. I think that's kind of obvious reading it, and so that gives you the message that things that once were very powerful, or that once were symbols of power, like this statue, over time, the ages claim all of them. And I think that's that's my interpretation of the poem, and I think that's not hard to see. There may be other messages within it. I think that's one of the major ones. And yes, overall, I really like this poem, and I would recommend it.